David Axtell. Before we get into today's episode, I have to address something. If you haven't listened to the bonus episode we released on February the 25th, go back and find it. Because my co-author, Luigi Rondinini, decided, without warning me I should add, to finally reveal what actually happened one night in Riyadh with a certain 40 million cable order. While I was at home, sleeping, blissfully unaware. Luigi, I have to say, I'm glad you got that off your chest after all these years. And I suppose I should be grateful that at least Ahmed and Tufik weren't on the desk that night. Because if those two had been involved as well, I'm not sure even VJ could have kept things under control. But here's what I will say. Next time you're in the same city as me, I expect you at my desk by 7:30 in the morning. 7:30 sharp. No excuses. Because clearly, I need to keep a closer eye on you. Right, now that's out of the way. This is episode 8, the final episode of part 2, our series on Spot FX. We've covered mechanics, execution, and costs. Today, we're talking about settlement risk, the infrastructure that makes FX trading trustworthy, and why one bank failure in 1974 changed the industry forever. Settlement risk in FX is unique. It's not like equity settlement where one party delivers stock, the other pays cash. In FX, both parties are delivering currencies, payment versus payment. And those payments happen in different countries, through different payment systems, at different times of day. That time lag creates risk, enormous risk, principal risk, the risk that you deliver your currency and never receive the counterparty's currency. Not because of a market move. Because the counterparty failed during the settlement window. This isn't theoretical. It happened. June 1974, Herstatt Bank. And it nearly broke the global FX market. Let me tell you what happened. Because understanding Herstatt matters for understanding why settlement infrastructure works the way it does today. Herstatt Bank was a medium-sized German bank, not huge, but active in foreign exchange. In the early 1970s, they made increasingly large speculative bets on currency movements. Those bets went badly. By June 1974, Herstatt had accumulated massive losses from wrong-way FX positions. On June 26, 1974, German banking regulators closed Herstatt. They shut the bank down at 3:30 p.m. German time, after German banking hours ended. But before US banking hours ended. Here's the problem. Herstatt had been settling FX trades that day. European counterparties had paid Deutschmarks to Herstatt during European banking hours. Those payments were irrevocable. The money was gone. Herstatt was supposed to pay US dollars to those same counterparties during US banking hours. But when 3:30 p.m. arrived in Germany and regulators closed the bank, Herstatt never made those dollar payments. Banks that had paid marks to Herstatt got nothing back. They delivered their currency. They never received dollars. Full principal loss. The amounts were substantial. Banks lost tens of millions of dollars in 1974 dollars. That's hundreds of millions in today's terms. But the financial loss wasn't the worst part. The trust collapse was worse. Suddenly, every bank realized they faced the same risk with every FX trade. If you're settling with a counterparty across time zones, there's a window where you've paid but haven't received. During that window, you're completely exposed. If the counterparty fails, you lose everything. The market essentially froze. Banks became reluctant to settle FX trades without absolute confidence in their counterparty. Liquidity dried up, spreads widened dramatically. Normal business became difficult. The central banking community recognized this was a systemic problem. If FX settlement isn't reliable, international trade breaks down. Capital flows stop. The global financial system doesn't work. So they worked on a solution for decades. It took until 2002, but eventually the industry created CLS, Continuous Linked Settlement. Let me explain how CLS works. Because it's elegant, and it completely eliminates principal risk for eligible currency pairs. CLS is a bank, a special purpose bank owned by major financial institutions. It operates as a central counterparty for foreign exchange settlement. Instead of two parties settling directly with each other, both parties settle through CLS. CLS receives both currencies. CLS pays both currencies simultaneously. payment versus payment. Conditional settlement. The key word is simultaneously. You only pay if you receive. You only receive if you pay. Neither party faces principal risk. If either party fails to deliver, the entire settlement unwinds. Nobody pays. Nobody receives. But nobody loses principal. Let's walk through a simple example. Bank A agrees to buy euros from Bank B. 50 million euros at 1.0850. That's 54,250,000 US dollars. Instead of Bank A paying dollars directly to Bank B and Bank B paying euros directly to Bank A, both banks settle through CLS. 2 days before settlement, both banks submit their trade instructions to CLS. CLS matches the instructions, confirms both sides agree on amounts, rate, settlement date. On settlement day, between 7 in the morning and 12 noon Central European Time, CLS runs its settlement cycle. Bank A funds its CLS account with $54,250,000. Bank B funds its CLS account with 50 million euros. These fundings happen through the respective central banks. Dollars through the Federal Reserve, euros through the European Central Bank. Once CLS confirms both currencies are received, CLS simultaneously debits and credits. Bank A's dollars leave its CLS account. Bank B's euros leave its CLS account. Bank A receives euros. Bank B receives dollars. Transaction complete. If either bank fails to fund, the settlement doesn't happen. CLS doesn't take partial payment. It's all or nothing. That's what eliminates principal risk. You cannot pay without receiving. You cannot receive without paying. Atomic settlement. CLS operates during a specific window, 7 a.m. to 12 noon Central European Time, that's 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. Eastern Time, midnight to 5 a.m. Central Time. Why those hours? Because they overlap with operating hours of all major payment systems. Fedwire in the US, Target2 in Europe, BOJnet in Japan, the systems that move dollars, euros, yen. During that 5-hour window, all relevant payment systems are open. CLS can coordinate settlement across all of them simultaneously. Outside that window, it doesn't work. If Tokyo's payment system is closed, you can't settle yen through CLS. If New York's Fedwire is closed, you can't settle dollars. CLS settles over $6 trillion daily. That's not total notional. That's net settlement after multilateral netting. The gross flows are much larger. But CLS nets them down to 6 trillion in actual payments. It covers 18 major currencies: dollar, euro, yen, sterling, Swiss franc, Canadian dollar, Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar, Swedish krona, Norwegian krone, Danish krone, Singapore dollar, Hong Kong dollar, Korean won, South African rand, Mexican peso, Israeli shekel, Chilean peso. Together, those 18 currencies represent over 95% of global FX market value, so most institutional FX trading settles through CLS. But not everything. Emerging market currencies generally aren't CLS eligible. Chinese yuan, Indian rupee, Brazilian real, Russian ruble, Thai baht, these still settle bilaterally. That means settlement risk still exists for those pairs. You're back to the pre-CLS world. One party pays. The other party pays later. There's a window of principal risk. Managing non-CLS settlement requires different approaches. Credit limits are the primary control. You establish settlement risk limits for each counterparty. These limits are typically much larger than credit risk limits, because settlement risk involves full notional, not just mark-to-market exposure. If you trade 50 million yuan, your settlement risk is the full 50 million yuan equivalent in dollars. Your credit risk might only be the mark-to-market value, maybe a few $100,000. Very different numbers. Collateral agreements provide secondary protection. If you're settling large amounts with a counterparty in non-CLS currencies, you might require them to post margin during the settlement window. That margin covers potential loss if they fail. Netting agreements reduce gross settlement amounts. If you have 10 trades settling the same day with the same counterparty, you net them. Instead of 10 separate settlements, you have one net settlement. That reduces the exposure. But these controls just mitigate risk. They don't eliminate it. Non-CLS settlement still carries principal risk. Now let's talk about the operational side. Nostro accounts and correspondent banking. To settle foreign exchange, you need accounts in both currencies. If you're trading euro-dollar, you need a euro account and a dollar account. For a bank trading dozens of currencies, that means maintaining accounts in dozens of countries. These are called Nostro accounts, your account held at a correspondent bank in another country. Let's say you're a US bank. You need to settle euros. You establish a Nostro account at a German bank. That German bank is your correspondent. When you need to pay euros, you instruct your correspondent to make the payment from your Nostro account. When you receive euros, they're paid into your Nostro account. Then you can use those euros for other payments, or convert them back to dollars. Managing Nostro networks is operationally complex. You need to forecast your settlement needs in each currency. Ensure you have sufficient funds in the right Nostros at the right times. Too little and settlements fail. Too much and you're carrying excess non-productive balances. I spent years managing Nostro networks. In some regions, we maintained relationships with correspondent banks in over 100 different currencies. Saudi Riyal, UAE Dirham, Qatari Riyal, Egyptian Pound, Nigerian Naira, currencies many people have never heard of. Each currency required establishing banking relationships, negotiating terms, setting up account structures, training operations staff, monitoring balances daily. It's infrastructure intensive. But without that infrastructure, you can't settle trades. You can trade FX all day, but if you can't settle, the trades are worthless. Payment timing and cutoffs matter critically. Each domestic payment system has specific operating hours and cutoff times. Miss the cutoff and your payment doesn't settle until the next business day, which means your FX trade fails. Fedwire for US dollars cuts off at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Target 2 for euros cuts off at 6 p.m. Central European Time. BOJ Net for yen cuts off at 7 p.m. Japan Time. If you're settling dollar-yen, you need to coordinate payments through two systems in completely different time zones. Your dollar payment through Fedwire during US business hours, your yen payment through BOJ.net during Japanese business hours. The time zone challenges create operational complexity. You need staff awake and working across different shifts. Systems need to operate continuously. Monitoring needs to be 24 hours. Settlement failures happen. Operational errors, systems glitches, counterparty funding issues. When they happen, you need procedures. First, identify the failure. Expected payment didn't arrive. Why? Is it an operational error that can be corrected within hours? Or is it a credit event where the counterparty can't pay? If it's operational, you work with the counterparty to resolve. Maybe they missed the cutoff. Payment will arrive next business day. You adjust your internal accounting. Potentially charge them an overnight funding cost. Move on. If it's credit related, you escalate immediately. Document everything. Invoke any credit support agreements. Potentially close out other positions with that counterparty. Bring in legal. The difference between operational failure and credit failure is critical. One is inconvenient, the other is a potential default. Let me close with why all this matters beyond the operational details. Settlement infrastructure is what makes FX markets trustworthy. When a corporate treasurer executes a hedge, they need confidence that settlement will happen, that the money will move, that the exposure will be managed. Without reliable settlement, FX markets don't work. International trade becomes difficult, capital allocation becomes uncertain, the global economy operates less efficiently. CLS represents one of the financial industry's genuine innovations. It solved a problem that had existed since international currency trading began. It eliminated principal risk through clever institutional design and coordinated industry cooperation. $6 trillion settles through CLS every day, reliably, safely. That's the infrastructure enabling global commerce. Settlement risk might not be glamorous. It's not about making money. It's about not losing money through operational or credit failures. It's about trust and infrastructure and systems that work even when individual participants fail. That's what makes markets possible. That completes part 2 of the trading floor, Spot FX. We covered mechanics, execution, costs, settlement, the infrastructure and processes that underpin the largest financial market in the world. Next episode, we start part 3, forwards, how they work, how they're priced, how corporates use them for hedging, the practical application of FX markets for business. I'm David Axtell. Thanks for joining me on the trading floor. If you're finding this series useful, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We release episodes weekly. And if you want comprehensive technical coverage, FX Cash Products by Luigi Rondinini and myself covers all of this in institutional detail. Available through Rondinini Publishing. See you in episode 9.